Understandably focused on domestic events here, the crisis over blood supplies and whether or not the coronation should go ahead with the Koh-i-Noor diamond and other events. There are other matters global that we must look at, which of course is the ongoing problems in Ukraine. The UN General Assembly, an emergency session earlier this week to discuss the Russian-backed illegal referendums in parts of the country. And here to give us the latest update is Conservative MP and Foreign Secretary James Cleverly. Thank you for coming on, Foreign Secretary. As we understand it, what is the latest situation with our friends in Ukraine? Good morning.
Nick, good morning. Well, the Ukrainians continue to do incredibly well in their autumn counteroffensive against Russian aggression. Back when I was in the United Nations in February of this year, I said that if Putin was foolish enough to invade Ukraine, the Ukrainians would defend themselves ferociously. They've done just that. I'm very proud of the assistance that the UK has given them in both equipment and training, and just today the Defence Secretary has announced that we are gifting them a number of AMRAAM air-to-air missiles to help defend themselves from attacks from the sky as well as defending themselves on land. So,
are they new pieces of kit, Foreign Secretary, or are they additions to others we've supplied previously?
So this is a new equipment type in addition to other types of equipment.
What does this provide for? An AMRAAM, I think you called it. What does that?
So an AMRAAM, it's an advanced mid-range air-to-air missile. So basically, it is a part of the air defense system. It's a rocket. It's a missile that goes on Ukrainian fighters to help defend themselves against Russian air attack.
Okay, thank you for that. Can we, when the Defence Secretary says that he doesn't think Russia is no longer a world power, do you concur?
Well, Putin's foolish actions have broken Russia in so many ways. Just yesterday, we saw at the United Nations General Assembly 143 countries vote to condemn the illegal annexation of parts of eastern and southern Ukraine. So he's broken their standing on the world stage. He's broken their economy. Putin has broken their armed forces. So Putin's actions have broken Russia in so many ways. And in doing so, I think Ben is absolutely right that his actions have downgraded their status on the world stage, and it's completely unnecessary, completely illegal, and completely his fault.
Let's move to other matters, Foreign Secretary. As a senior member of the government, when you see headlines that Tor is in open revolt against PM, can you give us the background to this?
Well, the criticism of the Prime Minister, I think it's deeply wrong, it's deeply unfair. During the time that she was running for the party leadership, she made it clear that she was going to reduce the tax burden on people and businesses in the UK. She was going to go for growth, and she was going to be absolutely steadfast in support of the Ukrainian defence of their homeland. She is doing exactly what she said she was going to do.
I don't recall her saying she'd tank the economy, Foreign Secretary. I was out that day.
Well, Nick, I know it's a lovely soundbite, but the simple fact of the matter is our growth has been higher than predicted. Not as high as we would like, but higher than predicted. Our interest rates are lower.
Not for August.
But it was for July. So the point is that...
Well, should we go by the more recent months, Foreign Secretary? I appreciate this administration wasn't in power, but respectfully, I think saying that we're on track for record growth when we had the figures growth when we had the figures we got yesterday is a little bit hollow.
But the point is, Nick, our growth is outperforming a number of our international competitors. Our interest rates, whilst they are heading up, and that is something that obviously we're keeping a very, very close eye on and seek to address, they're increasing slower than many of our other competitors. Again, inflation, the actions the actions that the Prime Minister took and the Chancellor took have put a downward pressure on inflation. So our inflation rates aren't as high as many of our international competitors. So we are facing global economic headwinds for a whole load of reasons: the repercussions of COVID, the energy fuel increases because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, food price increases, again linked to those energy prices. So we've got a tough winter ahead. We completely get that. But the Prime Minister's got a growth plan, and she made it clear what she was going to do. And I think we should give her the support and give the Chancellor the support to deliver on the plan that she's put in place.
Are we living in the same country? Growth is down, to 0.2%. Our inflation is higher than some of our closest European friends, such as France and Germany. We have the Bank of England stepping in with scores of billions of pounds to shore up our pension funds. We have a number of mortgage products being taken off the market with zero notice, and a lot of people now struggling to pay their mortgage, or indeed getting a mortgage which is subsequently withdrawn because they can't make the payments. And you say we're in a good place. We must be in different countries, Foreign Secretary.
So, Nick, let's just address some of the things. Let's just look at what would have happened had the Prime Minister and Chancellor not made the interventions that they made a little earlier on this month. There were families looking at the credible prospect of energy bills up around the £6,000 a year. We've protected them from that. There were businesses that were contacting me saying that if they didn't get support for their energy bills, they would have to pull down the shutters and let people go. So we've protected those people, we've protected those businesses. Inflation was set to be considerably higher than it is, but because of the fuel intervention in part, those inflation numbers, while still not where we want them to be, are less than they would otherwise have been. You're right that our inflation rates are not as low as some of our international competitors, but they are considerably lower than others. And the growth rate of, as you say, is not where we want it to be, but Liz has said that the intervention she is making, the stimulus to infrastructure investment, those investment zones around the country, are to drive up the growth rates that you've just made reference to. And the point I've made to some of our critics is you can't be critical of our low growth rates and also critical of all the interventions to stimulate growth. You've got to pick one or the other. Liz has picked growth, and that's the right answer.
Do you think the whole mini budget might be abandoned?
No, because the elements, as I say, the elements of that mini budget were about protecting families and businesses from the kind of economic shock that the increased energy prices brought through. That is not going anywhere. The commitment to make growth happen in the economy by speeding up the investment in in the UK from overseas, by speeding up decisions on infrastructure projects that boost growth, that's not going anywhere. Making sure that a 70-year high tax burden doesn't get worse, because remember, these people keep talking about tax cuts. Many of the interventions in that budget were about not putting in further tax increases that were predicted. That's not going anywhere. And the point is, it's the right thing to do because it stimulates growth. She's got a plan, and we've got to see through the plan. That's what she has made clear. And as that plan takes hold, as people feel that money coming into their bank accounts, the £1,200 for the 8 million most vulnerable households in the country, as they see the economic growth happen, that will build the confidence in the government, and that will be the message we take into the next general election.
I know you're going to tell me it's just a poll, but why would it appear in parts...
It's just a poll, Nick. It's just a poll.
Well done, Mr. Cleverly. Why would it appear that in parts of the Blue Wall area in the south, your party is about as popular as toothache? Labour has a 13-point lead in 42 of the Conservatives' heartland constituencies. Now, I'm sure it's not yours, but colleagues such as Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, Dominic Raab, and someone you might recall, Boris Johnson, are now under threat. Why is your party so unpopular?
Well, look, we are having to take very significant measures because of the unprecedented circumstances that we find ourselves in. That is unsurprisingly, I think, disconcerting to a number of people. But as I say, when my parliamentary colleagues and their voters see the positive outcome of that economic growth, when people see... Well, look, we know we've only got a couple of years until the next general election, so we know we've got to get a move on. That's why the Prime Minister is so committed to making sure those infrastructure projects, some of which have been stuck in the long grass for years, that's why these things get delivered. That's why she's taking some of the economic pressure off of businesses and off of families so that we can get the economy really, really pumping. And when that happens, and I'm confident it will, people will be reassured. That confidence will come back and those polls will shift.
OK, last couple of questions. I don't know what level of assurance is displayed by the King. How embarrassing is it when he says dear, dear, when he meets the Prime Minister for her audience yesterday?
Well, look, he knows what we all know is that we are all going
dear,
through
dear,
tough
when
times.
you see the PM?
We're all
Hardly
going
a
through
message
tough
of support,
times.
Mr. Cleverly.
You know, look, we're all going through tough times. I've had the privilege of meeting His Majesty the
Well, I trust he
King.
didn't say dear to you.
But the point is, look,
When
we've got
dear,
a war raging.
it's not a message of support, is it? When you see
what it
someone and you
is-
say, if I saw you, and we have met, and I saw you, Jazz, and I said, dear, that's not exactly a word of encouragement, is it? So how
So I
embarrassing
think-
was it?
So, Nick, I think you're trying to paint that as a political statement.
No.
I view it. Well, okay, I view it as much more an empathetic statement to someone, to a leader of our country. He is our head of state.
Indeed.
To his head of government, and he recognises that all of us and everyone in the country is dealing with a really, really tough winter ahead.
Right.
Now, as I say, Liz has got a plan to deal with this. I think that it's the right plan. I'm going to back it, and I very strongly encourage my parliamentary colleagues to do likewise.
Lastly, this is very much on your brief, the political sensitivities about Queen Consort or Queen Camilla wearing the Koh-i-Noor diamond at next year's coronation, should the diamond be in place. Foreign Secretary.
Well, look, ultimately, this is a decision for the palace. It is a royal ceremony. The coronation is a royal ceremony. The one thing I have really noticed is that the king, I think, instinctively is very good at assessing and calibrating to the public mood, both domestically and internationally. 'Cause remember, he's not just the king of the UK; he's the king of countries all over the globe. It is a decision for the palace, but as I say, the decisions made by the palace are always done with a very clear understanding of the iconography and the image that it sends, both domestically and internationally.
Grateful for your time today. Thank you, Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, appearing here on LBC, where at 2 minutes after 8, the news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, Liz Truss